2 weeks ago at exactly 14 minutes past 10 in the morning. The doorbell rang. I opened my front door and stared into the face of a woman who exiled me 8 years ago. My mother stood on my porch. She wore her signature country club pearls and a tight, trembling smile. She bypassed any greeting. She ignored the framed photos in the hallway of the grandchildren she had never bothered to meet. Instead, she shoved a folded piece of heavy cardstock directly into my hand. I unfolded the thick cream paper. It was an itemized invoice, 5 bullet points written in her perfect looping handwriting. At the very bottom sat a bold, underlined total, $1.5 million. Next to the words was a single phrase, family equity cut. A bead of sweat tracked through the heavy foundation on her forehead. Her chest heaved with a strange, ticking panic, but her eyes were entirely cold. She stared right through me and announced that it was time to pay my dues. My jaw tightened. I looked from the piece of paper to the woman standing on my welcome mat. 8 years of absolute weaponized silence, broken only because my event planning business had just landed a massive national television franchise deal. Now, she wanted a 7-figure payout. I folded the paper, handed it back to her, and quietly closed the door in her face. The lock clicked, echoing through the empty hallway. My hands shook slightly, but my mind was entirely clear. She thought she could rewrite history. She forgot that I kept the receipts. The silence began the summer I turned 25. I married Derek, a custom home builder who wore steel-toed boots and worked 60 hours a week. He was kind, fiercely loyal, and entirely invisible to my mother. In her world of Phoenix country clubs and charity galas, a blue-collar son-in-law was a social liability. She demanded I cancel the wedding. When I refused, she did not just cut me off. She launched a scorched earth smear campaign. She told the neighbors, her tennis partners, and the entire neighborhood association that I was a relapsed drug addict stealing from the family. It was a vicious, fabricated lie designed to justify her abandonment and preserve her pristine social image. My sister, Brooke, the golden child who had her rent paid and her life entirely subsidized, eagerly echoed the lies. For the first 3 years, I tried to bridge the gap. I mailed baby announcements when my twins were born. They came back shredded in the mail. I sent Christmas cards. They were returned unopened, marked with heavy black ink. Brooke left exactly 1 voicemail during that time, laughing in the background as she told me not to bother showing up to our father's funeral because I would only embarrass them. I saved that voicemail. I saved the shredded baby photos in a sealed plastic bag. I saved every cruel text message Brooke sent over the years. I backed them all up on a secure digital drive. People call it petty. They tell you to let it go and be the bigger person. But keeping those records was not an act of obsession. It was my psychological armor. I knew with absolute certainty that the day would come when my mother would try to gaslight me into believing the abuse never happened. I needed objective truth. Derek and I built our lives from the ground up. He built houses, I built my brand. While my mother and sister spent their days curating a fake reality of inherited wealth, I organized high-end corporate events, working late nights while the twins slept in a playpen in my office. Year by year, the business grew. Then came the television deal. It made local news. Then national blogs, The ink on the contracts was barely dry before the vultures began circling. Suddenly, the drug addict daughter was a visionary entrepreneur. Suddenly, I was worth knowing again. 3 days after she showed up at my house with her invoice, my mother ambushed my corporate office. She marched past the receptionist, acting like she owned the building. She sat in the chair opposite my desk, radiating a terrifying, completely fabricated warmth. She actually smiled and told me she was proud of me. She claimed the 8 years of silence was just tough love. She said she distanced herself to teach me independence, framing her cruelty as the very foundation of my success. Then she slid a contract across my desk. It was an employment agreement. She demanded I hire Brooke as a co-founder with a base salary of $300,000 a year. I pushed the paper back across the polished wood. I told her Brooke was unqualified and that neither of them would ever see a dime of my money. The fake warmth vanished instantly. Her face hardened, her lips thinning into a vicious line. The mask slipped, revealing the terrified, entitled rage underneath. She stormed out, knocking a vase off the reception desk on her way to the elevator. The shattering glass was just a preview of the destruction she was planning. She escalated from annoyance to federal blackmail less than 48 hours later. Derek and I were stepping out onto our front porch when my mother emerged from the shadows of the driveway. She blocked the steps. She did not bother with pleasantries. She pointed a trembling finger directly at my chest. She explicitly stated that if I did not wire the exact sum of $1.5 million to her account by Friday, she would call the television network producers. She threatened to feed them the old, fabricated rumors about my supposed drug addiction. She promised to kill my franchise deal by noon. Derek stepped in front of me, his posture completely relaxed. He looked at my mother and simply asked if she was finished. She sneered, told us we had 48 hours, and marched back to her luxury SUV. She thought she held all the cards. What my mother failed to realize is that Derek builds custom, high-end smart homes for a living. Our house is equipped with a commercial-grade security network. The camera mounted discreetly above the entryway captures 4K video and crystal clear audio. It recorded every single syllable of her extortion attempt. I did not panic. I simply went inside, downloaded the file, and sent it directly to my corporate attorney. Mr. Miller. My mother realized her threats were ignoring the reality of my silence. So she launched a desperate counterattack. The day before my company was scheduled to host a massive charity gala, a process server handed me a stack of legal documents. My mother had filed a fraudulent civil lawsuit against my company. She claimed she provided the initial seed money for my business and was legally entitled to an equity stake. Brooke simultaneously launched a massive crowdfunding campaign online, claiming their family was the victim of elder abuse and financial manipulation by a greedy corporate daughter. They thought the threat of public embarrassment at the upcoming gala would force me to settle quietly. They expected me to panic, write the check, and make the lawsuit disappear. They severely underestimated my lawyer, and they completely misunderstood the law. Attorney Miller did not advise me to settle. He advised me to lean in. By filing a civil lawsuit claiming she provided seed money, my mother opened herself up to the legal phase of discovery. Miller immediately subpoenaed 10 years of her personal tax returns and bank statements to prove the origin of this supposed seed money. The forensic audit took 3 weeks. It did not just prove she lied about funding my company. It accidentally unearthed a massive, sprawling financial crater in her own life. The audit revealed exactly why my mother was so desperate for $1.5 million. Over the past 7 years, she had systematically embezzled that exact amount from the Country Club Homeowners Association where she served as treasurer. She stole the money to fund Brooke's lavish vacations, designer clothes, and luxury car leases. A new, strict president had just been elected to the board and ordered an end-of-year audit. My mother was weeks away from being exposed. Her maternal return was nothing more than a frantic scramble to replace the stolen funds and avoid federal prison. She thought she was setting a trap for me. Instead, she legally handed my attorney the exact financial records needed to destroy her. The climax did not happen with a screaming match at a glamorous party. It happened in the cold. Quiet privacy of a corporate boardroom. Attorney Miller summoned my mother and Brooke to his office under the guise of discussing a settlement. They arrived wearing smug smiles, carrying designer handbags they bought with stolen money. They sat across the heavy mahogany table. I sat next to Derek, perfectly silent. Miller did not offer them a settlement. He slid a thick black binder across the table. Inside were the bank statements detailing every stolen dollar from the Homeowners Association. Next to the binder, he placed a small tablet. He tapped the screen. The crystal clear audio of my mother's extortion attempt on my front porch played into the quiet room. Her own voice echoed off the walls, threatening to destroy my business with fabricated lies if she did not get her payout. The blood drained entirely from my mother's face. Brooke stopped chewing her gum. Her eyes darted toward the door like a trapped animal. The smugness evaporated, replaced by the raw, suffocating reality of complete ruin. Miller delivered the ultimatum. He informed them that the audio recording constituted federal blackmail. He explained that the bank records proved grand theft. He told my mother she had exactly 1 hour to drop the bogus civil lawsuit with prejudice. If she refused, he would courier the entire binder, along with the extortion tape, directly to the state attorney general and the president of her country club. Arrogance is a terminal disease. Instead of taking the out, my mother slammed her hands on the table. She screamed that the evidence was fake. She grabbed Brooke by the wrist, stormed out of the office, and doubled down. That night, Brooke updated the crowdfunding page, begging for more donations to fight her evil, wealthy sister. That was the final nail in their coffin. The next morning, Miller made the calls. The state attorney general moved with terrifying speed. Because Brooke used the internet to solicit donations under false pretenses across state lines, the crowdfunding campaign automatically triggered federal wire fraud charges. The Homeowners Association president reviewed the bank statements and immediately pressed charges for embezzlement. The justice was swift, specific, and devastating. 8 months later, a judge sentenced my mother to 6 years in state prison for grand theft and extortion. She was ordered to pay restitution of $1.5 million, an amount she could never hope to cover. She was permanently banned from the country club she worshiped. Her house was seized to pay the debts. Brooke, complicit in the wire fraud and a beneficiary of the stolen money, received 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent felony record that rendered her completely unemployable in her social circle. The community reaction was absolute. The same women my mother played tennis with, the same neighbors she lied to about my addiction, turned their backs on her entirely. Her social execution was complete. She lost her reputation, her freedom, and her golden child in one swift stroke of justice. A few months after the sentencing, the hollow echo of her manipulation tried to reach me one last time. A letter arrived in my mailbox, stamped from the state correctional facility. The handwriting was no longer perfect. It was jagged and rushed. I opened it. She wrote 4 pages detailing her suffering. She claimed she was just trying to keep the family together. She ended the letter by reminding me that she was still my mother and that I owed her forgiveness. I read the words, standing in my sunlit kitchen. I did not feel a surge of anger. I did not feel the urge to draft a furious reply. I felt absolutely nothing. The words held no power. I folded the letter, dropped it into the trash can, and walked away. I did not reply. I did not save it in the digital drive. I no longer needed armor. The war was over. My life today is built on a foundation of peace. Derek and I host Sunday dinners in our backyard. Our children run through the grass, laughing with neighbors who know our real story. My chosen family fills the space where my blood relatives use to create chaos. We have mentors, friends, and colleagues who treat us with the respect we earn, not the obligation we owe. The air in my home is light. The silence is no longer a weapon, it is a comfort. If you are watching this and you are currently suffocating under the weight of a toxic family member, I need you to understand exactly how this works. The guilt they weaponize against you is an illusion. They rely on your silence to maintain their power. I learned 3 vital rules during this decade of exile and extortion, and I want to share them with you now. Rule number 1, the currency of loyalty is not blood. Blood is merely a biological coincidence. True family is defined entirely by who stands next to you when you have absolutely nothing to offer them. Derek stood by me when we were eating cheap noodles on a mattress on the floor. My mother only showed up when my net worth had a comma in it. Do not ever confuse a shared last name with unconditional love. Rule number 2, the armor of objective truth is your greatest asset. Toxic people survive by rewriting history. They will twist their cruelty into a narrative where they are the ultimate victim. Keeping receipts is not petty. Saving the vicious texts, preserving the cruel voicemails, and documenting the abuse is a necessary survival mechanism against gaslighting. Truth does not negotiate. When the time comes, let the evidence speak for you. Rule number 3, the ultimate revenge is irrelevance. True victory is not watching your abusers fall. True victory is reaching a point in your life where their absence is a profound blessing, and their opinions are financially and emotionally irrelevant to your peace. The day I threw that prison letter in the trash without a second thought was the day I truly won. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. You are allowed to protect your peace with absolute ruthlessness. If you are holding on to a relationship just because society tells you that family is forever, ask yourself one simple question. Would you tolerate this exact treatment from a total stranger on the street? If the answer is no, it is time to change the locks. Drop a comment below if you have ever had to become the villain in someone else's story just to protect your own sanity. Tell me about the moment you finally chose yourself. Share this with anyone who needs permission to finally close the door. Walk away and never look back. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, why didn't she just call the police the second her mother showed up with that invoice? Why endure 8 years of a vicious smear campaign before finally dropping the hammer? It is incredibly frustrating to watch. But let me stop you right there. She did not wait because she was weak. She waited because of what behavioral psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, or the slot machine effect. When a toxic parent starves you of affection for years, but then suddenly shows up at your office smiling and telling you how proud they are, your brain treats it like a jackpot. You know, the machine is rigged. But you become addicted to those tiny crumbs of hope. They give you just enough fake warmth to keep you pulling the lever, hoping this time they will actually act like real family. Natalie was not stupid. She was grieving the mother she never had, and breaking that biological addiction takes time. But when that illusion finally shattered, Natalie executed an absolute masterclass in strategic destruction. If you ever find yourself facing down an entitled relative demanding a cut of your hard-earned money, take notes on these 3 smart moves. First, she practiced building the case. She did not rely on a he said, she said argument. She let the high-definition smart home security system do the talking. She stayed silent, kept her emotions entirely in check, and let the technology silently document the extortion. Second, she deployed the audit strategy. When her mother filed that bogus lawsuit claiming she provided seed money, Natalie did not panic and settle out of court to protect her public image. She leaned into the law. Scammers absolutely hate details. By forcing the legal discovery phase, her lawyers dragged her mother's finances into the light, automatically uncovering the Homeowners Association embezzlement. Third, she executed the ultimate buyout. She refused to pay a single dime of that $1.5 million. Instead, she invested in her total freedom. She used the legal system's own momentum to permanently neutralize the threat, letting the state attorney general take out the trash without her ever breaking a sweat. The last letter from my mother arrived 6 months after sentencing. The handwriting was shaky now. No perfect loops. No polished country club elegance. Just jagged ink from a prison cell, trying one last time to reach through the bars and pull me back into the role she created for me. She wrote that she was lonely. She wrote that Brooke was struggling. She wrote that family should not abandon family. Then she ended with the same sentence she had used my entire life. After everything I did for you, you owe me. I stood in my kitchen, sunlight spilling across the counter, and read that line twice. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was finally powerless. For years, that sentence had been a leash. It made me apologize when I had done nothing wrong. It made me chase people who had already discarded me. It made me believe that being a good daughter meant accepting any amount of cruelty, as long as the person holding the knife shared my blood. But the truth was simple. She did not come back because she loved me. She came back because I became valuable. She did not want reconciliation. She wanted repayment for an investment she never made. So I folded the letter, dropped it into the trash, and walked outside to where Derek was helping the twins build a crooked little birdhouse in the yard. They were laughing, covered in paint, completely unaware that an entire bloodline of manipulation had ended with one unopened reply. That was my real victory, not the prison sentence, not the seized house, not the country club turning its back on the woman who worshipped it. My victory was this ordinary afternoon, my husband smiling at me, my children safe, my home quiet, my business thriving, my phone silent, no guilt, no panic, no emergency demand, no mother on my porch with an invoice for a childhood she chose to weaponize. If you are still waiting for toxic people to admit what they did, I need you to hear this clearly. They may never give you the confession. They may never say sorry. They may rewrite the whole story until they are the victim and you are the villain. Let them You do not need their honesty to be free. You only need your own. Keep the receipts. Trust the pattern. Protect your peace before they turn your success into their entitlement. Because some people do not miss you when you leave. They miss what they could take from you. And the day you become unavailable to their greed is the day your real life begins. Here is the brutal truth. Toxic people view your boundaries as a challenge and your success as their personal ATM. You cannot negotiate with entitlement. And you can never buy genuine love. The only way to win is to build your armor of objective truth. Stay completely rational. And let their own greed become the very trap that destroys them. If this story struck a nerve, or if you have ever had to outsmart a manipulative relative to protect your own peace, drop your story in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button for more strategies on financial self-defense and protecting your assets. I will see you in the next one.